services, and actually I'll just talk just briefly. The total revenue and the total expenditure increases in this fund are largely due to placing Hiawatha Golf in the 2016 budget to operate as a 9-hole golf course. If things change based on recommendations that are information that's being collected now and recommendations that will be coming forward, we will make adjustments to the fund at that time. The other thing I would like to just point out in this is that you'll see the transfer to debt service. It's one of the last lines on this chart. You'll see that is being reduced. That's the shift of taking the Neiman debt out of there and placing it in the capital program. The net income, the $627,600, that allows those dollars to go into reserves to really fund capital improvements that are needed in the enterprise area.
Excuse me, Ms. Wiseman. Councilmember Bender.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So it was the commissions and rents portion, the 1.1 million that was related to the golf course. Can you explain that? I didn't understand.
Council member, commission and rents, there's actually other areas that are included in here. What I was referring to with the golf course is that the overall increases in the total increases in operating revenue and expenses are largely due to the golf courses. The commission and rents really come from our concession area, our customer service area. So it's the concession agreements with Sea Salt, Tin Fish, events that take place, the walks and the bike rides and the Twin Cities Marathon, those type of things that happen within our system all fall under that commissions and rents area.
Councilmember Palmisano has a question.
Mr. Chair, just a clarification, because I didn't fully understand that. We pay money in agreements. I mean, we do maintenance and stuff like that to things like the Sea Salt and the Tin Fish buildings. Is that what this is? Because it certainly wouldn't include whatever the park board's share of those revenues might be. A projection of that for 2016, does it?
It might be a little clearer to look at our operating income by unit.
Councilmember Palmisano, actually the city has no expenses related to those operations. Those are all within the park board. So the revenue commissions and rents that Julie was speaking to was we have agreements where we get certain percentage back of revenue. So it's that revenue from those restaurants, plus all the events that are permitted to be held in our park system, other vendors we have, that's the revenue from those. We also have operating expenses that get charged against those operations as well. But she was simply referring to the revenue side.
So that's the net on the revenue side.
It's not.
No, it's not net. It's gross
That's
revenue.
gross.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
But delving into the expense portion as you look at it by division, which is what you're about to explain.
Yeah. So if you look at operating income by unit, you'll see by this chart that parking, use and event permitting, vendors, agreements, and concessions are really the revenue producers of the enterprise fund at this time. We are showing the sculpture garden with zero revenue for 2016 because it is under construction and will be under construction next year as well. And then golf, we are showing a net loss at this point, and again, that is because Meadowbrook will be under construction and Hiawatha is programmed to be operating as a 9-hole course rather than an 18-hole course. And then we talked briefly about winter recreation, that one is programmed to lose money in 2016 as well. The Internal Services Fund is the next section of the budget book. And again, in the Internal Services Fund, customer service, get to the right page here. Equipment rental increases are phased in for the equipment replacement gap reduction. We expect equipment services to be back to being fully funded by 2019. So what I'm referring to with that is that you will see a 5.2% increase for equipment rental. That's the charge that the equipment services division charges the departments when they utilize our mobile equipment fleet. Then you also will see at the bottom that our mobile equipment replacement, we have 1.7 million programmed for 2016 for mobile equipment replacement. We were very behind in replacing our mobile equipment, with a lot of our mobile equipment past its useful life. So we have put in a 5-year phased approach in increasing fees and increasing the amount that we're investing in the equipment fleet, so that by 2019, we're back to being fully funded and back on a replacement schedule that is best practices. We're also doing the same thing with our ITS services. So again, you'll see a bigger increase on the revenue side based on raising the rates, as well as an increase in the information technology replacement line. And again, these are the 3 areas that are included in the internal services fund budget. And I'll just point out that for both information technology services and the equipment operations, we are recommending putting money into reserves for future replacements.
Similar to our CARS project, CARS programming,
Yep.
anticipating capital investment over a period of time.
Yeah.
Tucking it away.
We have our personnel summary section of the budget book. And between 2003 and 2012, or actually it's 2006 to 2012, we've eliminated 117 full-time positions, or 20% of the workforce. Since 2012, the workforce has been increased by 38 full-time positions. On the capital project side section of the budget book, this highlights the area where we shifted the money for the riverfront capital into the special revenue fund rather than the capital project fund. And then it also reflects the elimination of the North Mississippi funding. This shows the operations facilities that we are beginning to program into our capital program and the funding that we're identifying for those activities. This is an example where we talked about that capital levy projects were delayed 1 year. So this is an example for Matthews Park, showing that it's being shifted from 2016 to 2017. We're increasing it by the construction inflationary factor, as well as you'll see $12,900 being allocated to this project directly out of the park dedication fees that were collected in that area and are going to be able to be used in this project. This is the Neiman Sports Complex debt, so it shows the $600,000 over the next 5 years, or $3.2 million that will be programmed out of the capital project funds if this budget is adopted by our board. And then this shows, again, North and Northeast Service Center, as well as our forestry wood processing site that we have to move out of the Fort Snelling site and have to develop a new site in 2016.
I've noticed, in my experience, at least in the 11th Ward, where we have rec center or rec committees. What are they called? Like PERC? Yeah, activity counties, rec kind of focused areas. There's also revenues that come from neighborhood associations for specific projects. How are those kind of revenues collected? Third-party kind of revenues and neighborhood association as they go into a specific neighborhood park plan, for example.
Council members, they would be recorded, if I go back, they would be recorded as that other outside funding, and they would be identified for the specific park project that they were allocated towards. So if you look in the detail pages in the capital project section, you would see some of that identified in there.
Okay, thank you. it helps. I imagine each of those would be detailed as we could look through those books. But I know that it's a big deal for my neighborhoods to be supporting those neighborhood parks, and they have done so
Yes.
to a large degree on specific projects, whether it's shading or playground equipment or, maintenance of trails, et cetera.
Council member, I'll also mention that we do get money not only for capital, but we also get money for programming. And if we receive money from programming from those special councils or other, for example, people for parks councils, those are accounted for in the special revenue fund because they're dedicated for a specific purpose.
Very good. Thank you.
So just in closing, our next steps at the Park and Recreation Board is on November 4th and November 18th. Our Board of Commissioners will provide comments and questions regarding the superintendent's recommended budget. We also are offering opportunities for the public to comment on the recommended budget. On December 2nd, our Administration and Finance Committee will approve the annual budget for the Park Board. And then on December 9th, we will be over in City Hall with the public hearing, and then we will adjourn to a separate room where we adopt our annual levy and our budget.
Yes, and I think we're going to have a couple. Thank you very much, Ms. Wiseman. We have Councilmember Yang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Superintendent Miller, I just wanted to ask you with regards to North Commons Water Park. We had some problems this past year. Wondering, how this budget affects them, or wondering what the, direction of that is going to be this next year that's coming up.
Absolutely. Councilmember Yang, yes, we and last year our problems were really significant. Every year for the last, actually probably 10 years, we've had a lot of issues at North Commons because it's, again, one of our facilities that is way beyond its life cycle. And one of the challenges we have in Minnesota, particularly with all of our wading pools and our water parks, is that we don't know until spring what condition they're going to be in because of the freeze and thaw that occurs. And all of our piping and systems are underground. So that's why last year we thought we had fixed some things and then it broke. But we have actually put in specific money this year for capital investment in North Commons to, the best word I can say is patch it to keep it operating until we can actually make significant capital investments at that facility.
Yeah, and I think my thing is just really that every year, we just kind of patch it together, and for the residents who live there, they just have this expectation that it's going to be there, and at some point, if there's some sort of predictability to it, let's say for last year, let's say if we just said, we're going to close it down for this year or close it down forever, at least people can say, okay, I can make plans for other places, but, just this idea of just slowly doing this sort of thing, it certainly puts a lot of stress on you all, but it puts stress on myself as well.
Absolutely. And Councilmember Yang, that's the dilemma we're having across our neighborhood park system, is we don't have funds to maintain and take care of our facilities. Most of our facilities are way beyond their life cycle, and we are patching them. I know you've been to some of our Closing the Gap meetings, and our board is working really hard to try to figure out how to get dedicated funding long-term to address all of the issues we have in our neighborhood parks, including North Commons, so that we can have functioning facilities for people.
So do we know if we're going to be open this year?
That is our plan, which is, again, why we've put in additional funding to address the infrastructure, some of the critical infrastructure issues at North Commons Pool.
Okay. I'll just be sure to give your number out, not my number, about the issues at North Commons Water Park. Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you very much. I wanted to ask a little bit about the forestry preservation position.
Yes.
And what's the funding for that? And I understand it's not, as you said, it's not in the mayor's budget.
Correct.
What does that person do?
Well, what we would love is for this council to raise that issue and propose that it be included in the final budget that's approved by City Council. It's $94,000, just around a little over $94,000 is the city's portion of that position. So we can get you more details, how we worked with Public Works and divided it all out, and what the split is, if you'd like also that, Councilmember Gordon.
Well, it would be good to have more information. I also wanted to make sure that my colleagues had some more information, and I'm aware of this position. We've discussed this a few times at the Transportation and Public Works, especially when we're talking about sidewalk work, and it was actually something that I was advocating for and pushing for. We did a sidewalk study of tree failures with the University of Minnesota that was fairly elaborate, and it became clear that we need some assistance in kind of analyzing our response to trees during road construction and sidewalk reconstructions. And Public Works was found some funding to assist with this actually right now. So there already is a position. It's already got some city money in it and funding. I'm not clear if we're sharing it half and half, 50-50. I do know that this is a person that we call for our city projects to come out and do analysis every time there's a question about
Absolutely.
it. And there's a great opportunity, I think, to save a lot of trees and even help guide some policy.
Absolutely. And Councilmember Gordon, I'm happy to get that. Should I forward it to you, Chair Quincy, so you can share with the rest of the Ways and Means Committee?
Yeah, please, if you could forward
Absolutely.
that to us, and we'll have the finance department, we'll share it with the full council.
Great. Thank you very much.
And does the park board pay for half of this position?
The Park Board pays a little over a third of the position. As we looked at the analysis, the bulk of about 2/3 is city, 1/3 is Park Board.
Might be a little wiggle room there. We'll
Well,
look
we
into
can,
that.
again, we will share it with you, the detail, how we came up with those figures.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Not seeing any further questions. I'd like to thank you very much for your presentation, Superintendent. Of course, for Ms. Wiseman for joining us. We see Ms. Ringwald in the back, as well as Commissioner Anita Tabb, who also sits on our Board of Estimate and Taxation, and President of Park Board, Liz Walensky. So thank you
Thank
for
you very
being here
much.
for that.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you. I think we're ready to move to our next budget presentation, which is actually from the Municipal Building Commission. Ms. Delaney, I don't know if you have slides already printed out or if you're just going to be able to do it from there. This is usually one of those most controversial of all budget presentations. That's why it's the last one. Yes, but then we're gonna, I should say that this is actually the last of the budget presentations, the formal ones. Immediately following this, we'll hear from our finance department with a budget overview wrap-up of our process and our next steps. So, yeah, just because when they finish, don't leave the room. We got exciting things for you still.
Okay. Okay.
Whenever you're ready, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair, Council members. My name is Erin Delaney, and I'm pleased to present the Mayor's recommended budget for the MBC. This is a department organizational chart. The MBC board sits at the top of the chart, obviously, and as a reminder, the city representatives to the MBC board are Council President Johnson and Mayor Hodges. The county representatives are County Commissioner Peter McLaughlin and County Commissioner Jan Callison, represent Hennepin County on the MBC board. This is a budget overview that describes the 5 programs that the MBC puts together. Our 2016 recommended budget, you can see the total at the bottom highlighted is $9.1 million. The city's portion of that is $4.9 million. And the city's portion of the total operating budget is divided out at 60%. The city pays 60% and the county pays 40% of our operating budget.
Excluding the detention center.
That's correct. Thank you. Now I will go through the individual departments of the MBC. The administrative department is charged with serving as staff for the MBC board. We also serve as project managers for all the projects that occur in the City Hall Courthouse building. The second department is the custodial and security department. which is 24 custodial employees represent our cleaning staff and our utility staff. A program that I'd like to highlight that was rolled out this year from that department was the One Sort Recycling Program. In addition, the security piece is in this department, and the security team is fully staffed now at 5 FTE and has been working on increasing security profiles and additional use of revenue for camera installation. I kind of muddled through that sentence, but the security staff is moving forward with enhancements and improvements. Excuse me.
Ms. Linnea, you've identified organics recycling. Could you talk about that? I'm not sure where those organics recycling containers are.
Certainly, Chair. We are just in the beginning stages of rolling that out. And what's exciting about that is that tenants of the building came to us and said, we want to do this. Specifically, staff members from the city council.
Yes, we've been talking about this for 5 years, as I recall. And then the county thought it was a good idea that they should impose that on the city, but we'd like to have it here in this building. That's terrific.
Right. We are actually working this week. We're meeting with different vendors on the best solution to pick up the organics recycling.
Fabulous.
So please stay tuned. Our intent is to roll something out before the end of the year.
Great, thank you.
Okay. The third department is the Repairs and Improvements Department, and this is primarily made up of 15 building trade staff, very talented staff that serve to do all the repair and maintenance of the facility. This includes painters, carpenters, plumbers, pipe fitters, electricians, a very talented group of building trade staff. The fourth department that I'd like to highlight is the Adult Detention Center. And as Chair Quincy already stated, this department is fully funded by Hennepin County. Just as a reminder that the MDC does serve as a custodial and maintenance provider for the Adult Detention Center. It's in the 4th and 5th floor in this facility. The MDC's final department is the Work for Others department. And this is work that is outside the regular repair and maintenance of the facility, and specific departments are billed directly for these expenses. The MDC supports the goals and the values of the city of Minneapolis. We're proud to present a 125-year-old well-preserved civic building that remains open and accessible to all citizens. We continue to be a great gathering place for both private and public events. And you'll note in the slides that I added, we're scheduled to have 25 private events in the City Hall Courthouse building in this year alone. And again, that's a program where the MBC receives revenue from the event. We charge for rent, and we also receive a commission on the food and beverages that are sold at those events. The City Hall Courthouse building is also proud to be involved in the city's Building Energy Challenge. And you'll see that this slide starts in 2009, that the consumption of steam, chilled water, and electricity, has declined steadily since 2009.
I was most excited about this particular slide. I thought it was
Thank you, Chair.
terrific work.
So are we. And we're up for the challenge for another 15% reduction.
I was confused by the fact it could start at negative 5%, but I guess you have to add in 2008 to get to the zero.
Right. Thank
So
you.
that's great.
Great. Yes, we're excited about that. We've already got some ideas brewing on how we're going to continue to decrease our consumption. Oops, I keep going the wrong way, pardon me. Just real briefly, the expenditure highlights are, again, the city pays 60% of our operating budget. The 2016 budget, proposed budget, is 3.7% higher than 2015, and that is primarily made up of healthcare and staff increases, wage increases. Two final slides before we conclude is I just wanted to highlight the fact that the MBC does administer capital projects as well. We go through the CLIC process through the city and the CBTF process through Hennepin County. And these are the 5 current projects that we have going. The projects 1 and 2, the mechanical life safety projects. Those are the projects you're probably the most familiar with. For example, we just concluded the first floor regulatory services space. That was part of the mechanical life safety project. The next phase of the mechanical life safety project will involve stages 23 and 22, which is in the basement and sub-basement of City Hall. And then finally, the most exciting project, the capital project, is our clock restoration project. The MBC board approved moving forward in our September meeting, and we've started with basic measurements of the clock face. You won't see any changes until probably about April of next year, when at that point the contractor will actually start to remove the clock faces one at a time. One note is that the neon on the clock face will be removed as part of this project, and the new look of the clock will be backlit. And what I tried to do is depict a picture here. This is the Dallas County Courthouse, and a night picture, but that will be the new look of the clock face. It will be backlit. The neon will be removed. So we look forward to moving forward on that project. And with that, I'm available for any questions.
It's a pretty good picture from 1892. Council Vice President Glidden.
I just, you talked about the neon being removed, but didn't say why. And just because I've heard some questions about that, maybe you want to talk about why that was the direction. Was that the most historical look? Was that because of supplies available today, or what was the reason?
Thank you, Councilmember. Chair Quincy. That's exactly it. The neon was not historic. It was not original. We think it was added sometime in the 30s or the 40s. We've worked in partnership with the SHPO organization and the local HPC organization as well. They are thrilled and very supportive that the neon will be removed. So, but that's an important point. As our communication on this project, that's a good point. Thank you.
Are you a big fan of the pink? Did you want it?
No, I've heard, in fact, I think I heard a reporter asking questions about the neon at one point. So I know there's, folks are following this to some extent, and it's such an iconic piece of our skyline. I know for years, I used to practice law, and there was one room where we would always take depositions, and somehow always I would be facing towards the clock. I think it was Dorsey and Whitney used to have this great conference room. And so, I think for many people, this is like just their picture of the skyline. And so anytime you have some changes, people are interested.
Right, absolutely. And we do intend, Councilmember Chair Quincy, to develop a large communication plan, because the clock face will be tentatively will be out of commission for several months. So it's important that we communicate that.
Okay. Good.
Great.
I'm not seeing anything further. Thank you very much, Ms. Delaney,
Thank you.
for all the work you do for our great historic building. We love working in it. Thank you. We're now getting to the wrap-up point of our budget presentations. So we're going to be hearing from Ms. Christensen as we do a kind of an overview, wrap-up of the overview. You know what I meant.
Summary of the summary.
Summary of the summary. And hopefully addressing some of the questions that have been raised during the robust conversations we've had along the way. Ms. Christensen, whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you. Chair Quincy, members of the Budget Subcommittee, Sandy Christensen, City Finance Department. We're going to provide for you today a summary of the overview of the Mayor Hodges 2016 recommended budget. Many of the slides that you'll see are maybe familiar to you, as some are duplicates from the presentation in September. Your challenge today is to let me know which ones changed, and that will be the test for the day.
Okay, that'll be the quiz.
All right. So major highlights of the mayor's 2016 recommended budget. Just to recap, the mayor recommends a balanced budget for 2016 that meets the city's current obligations as well as contemplating the future needs of the city. The recommendation includes a 3.4% increase in overall property taxes for the city. And again, that's only the city portion of the property owner's tax bill, and we'll get into that a little bit later. The recommended budget is about $1.2 billion. It's a 2.7% increase, or $31.8 million above the level of the 2015 adopted budget. Meets the current service levels, meaning that we're able to continue the programs and services that are provided in the 2015 budget for 2016, with a cost increase, of course, due to inflation as well as contractual obligations associated with multi-year contracts. The current service levels are maintained with an increase in the city's budget of $17 million. The mayor also recommended program enhancements ongoing for the city's programs of $6.3 million. There was a total of about $16 million of additional new activities requested by the city departments. The mayor recommended, again, about $6 million. There is also about $40 million worth of one-time activities that were requested by the various departments and functions of the city. The mayor was able to fund about $24 million of that within her recommendation. And again, these are one-time funds typically provided for through fund balances or one-time resources. Within the city's recommended budget, there includes a section regarding the city's financial policies, was incorporated into the book that was provided to the council members and is available online. Within the city's financial policies, you'll see our efforts to streamline our activities in the management of the city's finances, which also allows us to standardize our responses to various inquiries across the organization. From the standpoint of a financial overview, again, I mentioned that the mayor's 2016 recommended budget is about $1.2 billion. Incorporated into the city budget is 3,960.65 positions. That may be the accumulation of several part-time positions, but again, this is a reflection of what we would call an FTE or a full-time equivalent reflecting a full-time position. The 2016 recommendation includes an increase of 35 1/4 positions from the